Mongraal and Hijoe have crashed out of FNCS in the first round, and they are far from the only duo that struggled. Before we go any further, let me break down the FNCS format for you. We just had the play-ins round where the top 150 duos qualified to heats. They'll get split into 3 heats of 50 teams. In each heat, the top 15 duos progress to the grand finals, meaning 30% of the teams go through. That leaves 5 remaining spots for grands, and they will be filled during the last chance qualifiers. Now, a lot of big names missed out on the top 150, but there were none bigger than Mongraal and Hijoe, and I have to say it was a pretty poor performance. A shame, because they actually looked really good in the week leading up to this tournament. In the Divisional Cup Opens, they finished in 55th place, narrowly missing out on the top 50 needed to qualify for finals. That has turned out to be a little bit of a false dawn. They were showing quality in that tournament, but it wasn't really on show in these play-ins. They struggled on day 1, finishing in 257th place, and day 2 got even worse. They ended up finishing in 347th place. It felt like the writing was on the wall very early. The vibes were quite flat. It felt like they were sleepwalking into a low placement. It seemed inevitable that they weren't going to qualify. I don't want to be too harsh on them, but it did feel like they maybe needed a bit of a stronger plan going into this tournament. They were getting stuck in the tunnels around their split quite a lot, which isn't ideal. It's quite a difficult place to fight. It's very awkward. It did just feel like they were getting thrust into unfavourable situations for most of the games they played. And sometimes when they tried to make their own luck, it did backfire. Take this example where they get some nice tags onto the opposition team, and then they try to retreat because they've got what they need for Surge, but they end up somehow getting W-keyed despite the fact that they had the advantage. They were the ones that opened the fight. It's just kind of negative gameplay like this that kind of spoiled their tournament. Now listen, I do want to reiterate that Mongraal isn't a top player, and I think that's okay to say. I don't think it was by any means locked that him and Hijoe were going to qualify in the top 150. I'm actually not really that surprised that they've missed out, if I'm being brutally honest. Yes, last week was solid. Yes, they did look like they were hitting form at the right time, but prior to that, their placements have been pretty poor, so this isn't really a shock to anyone. I mean, if you take a look at Mongraal's historical placements over the past 4 FNCS campaigns, he's only made the heats round once. In the other 3, he crashed out at the play-in stage, so you know, this isn't that unexpected. Directly after the tournament ended, I speculated whether they would stick together or whether they would split. I do feel like Mongraal and Hijoe did have a few good moments together, but overall it's been a pretty unsuccessful stint. We do now have confirmation that they have split, so they will both be looking for new options. Now look, I was going to speculate about who Mongraal's new duo is going to be, but honestly, I just think there's too many options to even decide from. We also have the heats ending in a week's time, so that could open up a whole host of extra teammates for Mongraal to play with in the last chance qualifier. It is worth noting that his FNCS isn't officially over yet, because of course there are still 5 spots left for the grand finals, but if we're being realistic, I don't see him getting one of those spots, so this FNCS is all but over for him. Now Mongraal was the biggest name to have missed out on the top 150, but perhaps the best duo that struggled was Akiira and Kurama. A real shock. They had a horrendous day 1, finishing in 514th. Now look, I've always spoken about these guys as one of the most consistent teams in EU. For ages I've been saying they are the best French duo, and I don't know if I can continue saying that. Yes, they're good in the divisional cups. Yes, they are good in the smaller tournaments, but too many times when the lights have been the brightest, they have struggled to perform. They struggled in FNCS, they struggled at the Summit LAN. I know they were contested for both of those, so you do have to take those results with a pinch of salt, but nonetheless, it's still not great. I do wonder whether the magic has gone for these guys. Of course, they did split after the Summit LAN, but then they got back together, and it did feel like that was kind of spurred on by the fact that Mumsy and Skyjump reunited, having qualified for the EWC LAN together, and then Akiira and Kurama, who had obviously, Akiira had been playing with Mumsy, Kurama had been playing with Skyjump. Akiira and Kurama got forced to go back together. It did feel like maybe they were the leftovers from that 4, so yeah, I don't know, the optics aren't great. It felt like they were kind of just ended up back together just by convenience, not by merit, and I wonder if that is affecting their vibes. It is worth noting that they did improve a lot on day 2. They finished in 30th place, which says a lot about how bad their day 1 was, that wasn't enough to let them qualify. Listen, that day 1 was inexcusable. It was way below expectations for a team of this quality. I'm sure they can be one of the duos that could do well in the last chance qualifier. They do still have a lot of quality, but this was a bit of a worrying sign. And unfortunately for my French French people, they aren't the only duo from France that struggled, but if you want to stay up to date with European Fortnite news all the time, then make sure to subscribe to this channel. PodaSai and Seyyto also failed to qualify, narrowly albeit, because they finished in 152nd place. Again, they just struggled on day one. They finished in 299th place, and like a lot of the other teams on the list, they just weren't able to come back from that. Just like Akiira and Kurama, these guys made the Summit LAN, and now they've not even got through the play-ins round, which is a bit of a fall off. It's worth noting they did get Q-sniped by PodaSai and Marius in one of their final games, because these guys have been contesting each other at Cluster Coast for this season. But listen, that's kind of the price you pay for not getting the job done on day one, for leaving yourself in a vulnerable position going into your final games. You leave yourself at risk of being Q-sniped, and PodaSai and Marius did what any other team would do. But once again, we still have the last chance qualifier to play, so it's not completely over for PodaSai and Seyyto. So I've gathered a bunch of the other big duos that missed out on finals. As you can see, Prism and Casper failed to qualify, 353rd on day one. They just weren't quite able to come back from that. We had Dexy and Fighto miss out too. They have now split as a duo. Belusi and Zangi also failed to qualify. This one definitely surprised me because they made the Summit LAN and they actually looked pretty okay there, but 200th on day one, even worse on day two in 407th place, and they have also now split as a duo. If you can't see your favorite pro on this list, then the chances are they made it through, and I'm going to take a look at the heats maps in just a moment. But I have to say, I am pleasantly surprised by how many big names did get through. I did think the likes of Vanya, the likes of Tayson might struggle. We had Tayson and Murstache actually playing really well, which was a real surprise. That kind of came out of nowhere considering the lack of form for both of those players. Vanya and the Frizzy also pulled it out of the bag. I did expect them to make the top 150, but with how they've been playing, you honestly never know. Over on the other regions, we had the Russian duo of Howley and Lucia win the Middle East Open, so fair play to them. They have moved to the Middle East to play this FNCS, and I do think they have a pretty solid chance of qualifying for Globals. On NA Central, we had Moneymaker and Fanayan qualify for heats, finishing in 38th place. Fair play to them. Again, I do think they have a pretty bright future on that region. We had Lacey qualifying on NA West, despite having a pretty scuffed day two because he was over at Streamer University, but fair play to him and Ark, they have made it through, as did Faxity and Salco, so clearly the content creators are doing well on NA West. Okay, so let's take a look at all three maps for heats. This is going to be my first time having a look at them. Let's see what we've got for heat one. First thing I noticed, Swizzy and Pixie completely uncontested over at the Battlewoods, so that should be a pretty easy qualification for them. Let's see what else is going on. Shark and Teeny also uncon at Calamari Canyon, Focus and Thomas as well, so it does seem like a lot of the big teams in pretty comfortable situations. Let's take another look. Chino and Pablo as well should be pretty routine for a lot of the big names on EU. Couple of other interesting things to note. We can see that Cami and Hari are contested. Whether that stays for the finals, I don't know. I like the look of Skyjump and Mumsy there. Sires and Scary uncon as well. There's definitely some solid teams in this heat, but it does seem like it's a little bit top heavy. Maybe heat two will be a bit more balanced. Let's just take a look now. Upon my first look, this heat looks pretty stacked as well. The first thing I noticed is Vico and Malabuka are uncon at Lifty Lodge, as are Pink and Haris at the split to the right. There's no Eyedrop and Gonzo in this heat, and that's pretty interesting because if you watched the last Divisional Cup, Vico and Malabuka were conditioning. They were keying that split heavily. They were trying to fight the winners of the spawn fight between Pink and Haris and Eyedrop and Gonzo, and they won't be able to do that in these finals, so maybe we will see a slightly less aggressive Vico and Malabuka. It's hard to call, but there won't be quite as many opportunities for them to find easy eliminations. The south side of the map looks really stacked. There's a lot of top teams that are all uncontested. Sky and Scroll also uncon, as are King Cringe and Twy. Definitely a lot of top duos in this heat, and it does look a little bit more balanced than heat one. And now let's move on over to heat three and take a look, see what that one is saying. Velo and Zynox are at Frosted Flats. That's the first thing I immediately noticed. And let's see who's over at that southwest split. Cheatin and Geras. Okay, so that's interesting that Velo and Zynox have got Frosted Flats to themselves. They won't be able to replicate that in the grand finals, I'll tell you that for free. We've got Hutty and Fishix completely uncontested, which is pretty unusual for them. They are used to having to fight off spawn. What else have we got? We've got Mr. Savage and Truly completely uncon at Shaken Sanctuary. Now, whether they stay uncon, I'm not too sure. Savage does usually get get contested in these kind of finals, so we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, Savage and Velo didn't get through heats in the last FNCS. Can Savage break the curse? We'll have to wait and see. Nebs and Nathan are uncontested in the mid-map. If you didn't see, they won the most recent Divisional Cup whilst having 2 duos landing on them, so this should definitely be a change of pace for the Inform UK duo. Not really much else to report here. You can see that Chap and Flixie are uncon, but this does seem like the least stacked of the 3 heats, but it could also be the most competitive. Let's see how they all go. Very excited for the heats round. Please subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with European Fortnite news. I cover everything on this channel. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one.